April, when President Obama stood in favor of gay marriage in an interview last week, he received enthusiastic support from much of the Democratic base. But one group has serious reservations, and it's the most loyal Democratic group of all, African-American voters. Well, the president convened a conference call with 8 or so African-American ministers just hours after he made that announcement to explain his position, and he wanted to gauge their reactions. Well, Reverend Delwyn Coates was one of those on the call. He supports the president's stance on gay marriage. Bishop Harry Jackson opposes the president's position. So I want to start with you, Reverend, and your thoughts about it, what your thoughts were before, during, and after the president took this position.
Well, I've always been a supporter of the president's position, and I think it's important for people.
Wait a minute, he didn't have the position until last week.
Right, well, I've had my personal position.
Oh, you were for it before he was for it.
Right, I came out in support of civil marriage protection in the state of Maryland, and I think it's important for people to understand that civil marriage protection for gay and lesbian couples is decidedly different from religious marriage. I think it's important for people to understand that in this country, as a matter of public policy, we have to maintain the separation between church and state, and that we have to understand that we cannot base issues of public policy upon one's personal and private theology. And so it's critically important that we protect the rights of all citizens of this country. And President Obama was elected President of the United States and not pastor of the United States.
Well, as a pastor, would you preside over gay marriage?
Well, this precisely...
No, would you?
Would I preside? Well, our local
you said
church,
your private as well as opposed to your public view, what the law should be and what you would do as a minister. Right. Do you support, as a religious leader, gay marriage?
Well, absolutely.
You do both. It was good for both.
I believe, as a religious leader, I believe that gays and lesbians deserve equal protection under the law.
And under your religion.
Well, what I'm saying is that the personal theological issue is really immaterial.
But where are you on the personal theological issue? I want to know that too.
As a part of my personal theology, I believe that all
citizens so you don't have a distinction. Okay, let me go to you, Bishop, and your views personally, first of all. First of all, you a Republican or a Democrat?
I'm a Democrat.
Okay. You've supported the president before? You voted for him?
I did not vote for the president.
Why not?
I was concerned about these very issues.
Well, what issue made you concerned in the year 2008?
The biggest thing was life, the abortion issue. I read his book that came out beforehand. It seemed to me, from way back then, that he was leaning in this direction and others. Jeremiah Wright is known to have performed commitment ceremonies for gays and lesbians a while back. So I've got some serious concerns that are biblically based as far as I'm concerned.
Do you think that people should have voted against the president on the basis of his pro-choice position?
I think at this point, with these choices, yes. In another time, I think McCain, for example, ran one of the worst races in recorded history, and he was ambivalent on how he stood.
Who'd you vote for last time?
I did. Well, I voted for McCain. I wanted voting for him. My father was threatened at gunpoint when I was 1 year old down in Florida about voter registration.
Did you vote for George W. as well?
I voted for George W. the second time, not the first time. Okay. Ironically, 2004, when marriage became an issue, I came out as a Democrat and joined arms with guys like Tony Perkins and other folks because I felt that marriage is foundational to the culture. And here we are now, 8 years later, and we've got the same kind of demographic going on. And I'm concerned, a lot of people are saying they're not going to vote at all who are African Americans because they say, I don't feel like I can vote against the first black president. I don't like what he stands for, and I don't know that I understand where Romney is as Mormon and other things. And
well, you mentioned the Mormon part. What do you think about that?
Well, they've worked with me on marriage issue, both in D.C. and Maryland. They seem to be fine, upright people. I'm on the board of the National Association of Evangelicals, and we had a meeting out in Utah last year. Yeah. This was very interesting.
Okay, I'm concerned. It seems to me there are a lot of issues that religion touches on in public life, whether it's capital punishment, war and peace, so many issues. It seems to me, though, that people on the right always pick out a couple issues that they focus on.
Right.
They don't focus on whether kids starve or kids have good nutrition or whether kids have a good education.
I'm against that too.
No, but they tend to focus on these right-to-life questions and marriage issues.
And that's critically important. The reality is that more is said in the Bible about poverty and caring for the poor and systemic inequality than issues of private morality. Right. And so I believe that what we're going to find in this election season is that people understand is that there's more that unites us than what divides us. And
I remember that Jesus always stood against the people being stoned.
Absolutely.
He was the one that said, don't condemn people.
Even
his friend was Mary Magdalene.
Even when there was a biblical basis.
He wasn't out there saying obey the law strictly like the Pharisees were. He was the one saying be Christian in the sense of looking out for mercy and for people who are in trouble.
Let me give you a little bit of information I think will be helpful.
You think he would have been chasing after the kid with long hair and cutting his hair? He would have been the ones protecting the kid with long hair in high school.
He would be protecting the kid.
Right, I thought so. When you're with the guy who was going after the kid with
No, I'm not necessarily with him right now.
You're not with Romney?
I'm not with Romney at this point.
Okay.
And here's what I wanted to say to you about righteousness and justice. The Bible talks very clearly about righteousness, which is like personal morality and holiness. It also talks about justice. What's broken in American politics is that the Democrats think they own social justice. Yeah. The Republicans think they own righteousness, but the Bible doesn't say righteousness or justice. It says righteousness and justice. And therefore, like him...
Let me make a pitch for you. Don't you think that our president, you can start, our president is a model of a father, of a husband?
Sure.
In every way, he's been devoted to his wife, to his kids.
Sure.
I think he puts off a lot of politics at night, and I would disagree with him on this. He doesn't spend a lot of evenings hanging out with senators and congresspeople. He ought to do it because he'd rather be with his family and be a good husband. I think that's hurting him politically. But I think he's been a model family man. And that's why I find it hard to believe how tough you are on him, because you disagree on a question of civil marriage.
Well, I would say he's...
What are gay people supposed to do? Hang out with each other but never formalize their relationships? What are they supposed to do? What's a gay person supposed to do, Bishop?
I think that they can follow their hearts and their relationships. Politicians have let us down. To redefine marriage, you redefine the family, you redefine education.
But what are gay people supposed to do when they have close personal relations for life? What should they call that?
I think they should call that civil unions. That's what I think.
They shouldn't call it marriage.
Shouldn't call it marriage. Why? I think there's too much confusion around marriage, the individual roles. Marriage is on life support right now, and if I talk to your average African-American kid, he's from a broken home, he's got a single family.
I'm with you. All right, how does denying gay people the right to marry encourage young women and men who are in heterosexual relationships, who have children together, for example, and not get married? Isn't that a separate problem? How does gay marriage discourage young couples from actually formalizing their love relationships in the heterosexual world?
See, it's a pincer movement. I want to block the redefinition of marriage, but I need to strengthen marriage itself.
I thought that's where you're headed, and I think you're wrong. I don't think denying gay people the right to marry is going to encourage young heterosexual couples to formalize.
And I don't think this is a redefinition of marriage. This is an extension of civil marriage protection to all citizens.
Why not let the Muslims have polygamy and bigamy?
Mr. Bishop, I hope you evolve. Thank you very much. I'm just teasing, but nice to have you.
That's all right. Thank you for having me.
This is going to go on this summer anyway. Reverend Delman Coates, thank you, sir, and thank you, Bishop Harry Jackson.